There we go.
Good.
Okay, we are working then. That explains why Connor couldn't
Hopefully.
hear me there. Connor, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay, thank God. I was wondering why you couldn't hear me, and
Well,
there we go. You guys all just saw my boomer side. Still figuring out Streamlabs and all this jazz.
yeah.
So,
I will say I'm driving back from Kentucky right now, and I don't have AC in my car, so if you hear buffeting, you're just gonna have to deal with it.
yeah, no problem. Anyways, as I was saying there before, which I'm probably gonna have to clip out now. Um, Caryn Ann Harlos was removed earlier today, and that seemed to, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of thought that they had given up on this whole thing, that this was just something that they cut their losses on at this point. But can you just give us a little bit of perspective as to what went down there?
Uh, sure I can. Well, I mean, they knew going into this meeting that this was going to happen. It was clearly planned out. I think the board knew it was going to happen. Caryn claims she didn't hear about this until just a couple days ago, but I'm not so sure about that. Um, I know Laura Epke and Aaron Adams have been publicizing this for some time that they wanted this to happen. So, yeah, aside from obviously the dramatic aspects of it, there were some productive things that happened. They allocated $15,000 from the budget to the CRM project. Made a few committee appointments, and other than that, that's just about it.
Okay, so other than what happened with Harlos being removed, it sounds like there was just a lot of very standard things that were going on.
Pretty much.
Okay, well that's I'm at least glad to hear that some stuff like that was happening, but um, I gotta say, like with this whole thing, this seems kind of like a dumb move on their end, because I feel like they could only get this with having to, in a sense, play dirty. Like
Well,
this can't pan out well for them.
well, here's where I would like to make a delineation, and I can't speak for everyone on the board. I can only talk to what I saw and who I interacted with. Um, I think Aaron Adams was very sincere in her reasoning for wanting Caryn off the board. Um, if you were in the room, you would have seen that she was just really tore up and really in emotional turmoil over the whole thing. More so than I would argue Caryn Ann herself was. Um, and I can talk about that in a little bit. But Aaron was being very sincere in that she believed Caryn had to be removed from the board. Um, some of the other members of the board, like I think Laura Epke's line of logic behind removing Caryn Ann was, for the most part, bogus. Like most of the evidence she cited in that her dossier or whatever you want to call it was just weak, and for the most part there wasn't any weight to it. I think she was just adding, throwing on the fire of what Aaron had. um, and I think some of the other people in the room definitely just wanted to see Caryn gone for the gamemanship aspects of it. um, yeah, they were still sore about what happened in New Hampshire, what JBH resigning, and possibly even from the convention drama from a year ago.
Well,
There definitely was some of that.
that's kind of what I've noticed though is it's clear as day that a lot of people, or at least many of the ones who did this was simply retaliation for New Hampshire and pretty much blowing the whistle on everything that happened there.
Right.
I mean,
Um,
this didn't really come up until after that, and they haven't, this wasn't really, even though there might have been issues before, they weren't actively pushing for stuff like this before.
yeah. Well, obviously, the last couple months tensions have really flared. And that's where I think I mean, if you don't want to be charitable, you can, if you looked at um, some of these actions in isolation, you could see, yeah, it would be bad. But if you look at the context over the last 2 or 3 months, like, I think anyone would um, act the way they did in the face of it all. And that's where people aren't being charitable. Um, and I'm not excusing anything that's gone on. Like, if we're being honest, Caryn did exhibit some, unwieldy behavior. Should she have been?
Oh, I think we're starting.
Should she have been removed in the way that talked to her? I don't think any of the chair, whether it's JBH or Whitney, took any steps to make any behavior corrections. Because it's like, before you fire somebody, you're going to sit down and talk to them. Hey, this needs to change. Um, and I paid light attention to the LNC list, and I don't think that happened. I don't think anybody had for lack of a better term, a come to Jesus moment with Caryn. It's like, hey, like, no one sat down with her, um, gave her their true feelings about what was going on, offered corrective actions to her. I don't think any of those steps were taken. I think they just leapt over proper procedures and went straight to um, removing her. I don't think that's right.
Well,
Um,
to
she
some
should have.
degree with that too, part of me wonders if that stems from. It seems like some of these people seem to perceive her as a member of the Mises Caucus, even though she is not. Um, Part of me
Well,
wonders if that plays a role in not wanting to like have any sort of
well,
line of communication like that.
that's that's one of the insidious things about Epke's dossier. Is most of the evidence, quote unquote, that she cites were just screen caps from the Mises Caucus group of Caryn Ann asking, "Hey, who's going to be in Wisconsin? Who's going to be in whatever state that she's going to be in?" And it was clearly meant to demonstrate, hey, she's caught up in the Mises Caucus, and she's a meatcock, and she's under their thumb, which totally inaccurate. Um,
No. For real quickly, if I just interject real quickly for those who might listen to this and think that she is a Mises Caucus person, I just want to say in Florida, when news came in of the New Hampshire thing, because that happened while our convention was going on, she went up to Michael Heiss and basically yelled at him like, "Damn it, Mike! This is what the takeover language leads to." Like she definitely has her differences with the LPMC.
of course, and she's very openly said for a long time she doesn't belong to any caucus and doesn't believe in it. And granted, I mean, just by the nature of these things, she may align with us, but I mean, there's been plenty of times she hasn't, and she's pissed off a lot of meatcocks on various occasions, and we don't have to get into those. But I mean, she is not under anyone's thumb, I believe, and she certainly doesn't make um, doesn't draw partisan lines like that.
Yeah. But the thing is, like looking at this whole thing that happened, they had tried this several times since New Hampshire, and the only way they could get it was waiting for Stephen Nikhaila to leave. From what I understand, this is just what
Yeah,
I've been piecing together.
yeah.
Um,
Sexton, that was a bullshit move, and he straight up lied in the meeting, saying, "Oh yeah, I talked to Stephen about this," but what I heard is that no, he definitely did not, and apparently he drove up just for this vote. He wasn't there yesterday. He wasn't there this morning. He showed up as Stephen was leaving.
well, that's the thing. Like I am hearing all these details just from what I've been piecing together so far, and I'm sure more stuff is going to come out. You weren't the only person I reached out to. I reached out to several people, but everyone's traveling right now, so it's hard to talk to folks. But basically, from seeing all these things unfolding, it's like this was some dirty politics that went on there. Basically,
Yeah,
to get something that they had failed to get several times before this.
right. And I think, like, Dustin made an amendment or propose an amendment to change it to a censure, and just, I mean, that's a compromise. And I think even Caryn would have accepted that. And I mean, she said as much in the meeting that um, taking a censure is a real slap in the face, and it's a real warning. It's saying, hey, you need to change your behavior. And that's very understandable. That's a very reasonable thing to do to someone in this kind of situation. But again, they skipped any kind of remediation. They failed to take any kind of corrective action to Caryn's behavior. And granted, like I said, most of the charges were bullshit, but I mean, there are some legitimate criticisms to be had for Caryn. She's not a saint in all this.
Well, that's what I'm gathering from you is there are legitimate grievances, and just from like what I've seen, it seems like people who had a vested interest in getting rid of her after New Hampshire took advantage of those, and instead of going through the censure or doing anything else, as you said, that come to Jesus moment, they just jumped straight to the boot. No Vermin Supreme reference intended. But yeah, it's I am honestly amazed that they're still pressing this, considering everything that is currently going on in the world. Like this is, it honestly looks like one of those things. Like where are their priorities at this point? I mean,
Right. And I mean that came up on several occasions that um, part of the Caryn was heavily critical of the LNC for failing to speak on it. Um, I believe it was Chris Lucchini said if she had made a motion, he would have supported it, but I don't know the full story. I couldn't tell you the full story of what actions either she or others were trying to take to speak up loudly against the lockdowns and whatnot. Like, I remember,
well, it's not even just
like,
the lockdowns. There's so much going on, and
yeah,
this is
well,
where we're like, I feel like we're almost like the Judean People's Front from Life of Brian.
yeah. Well, I mean, like, I remember when Karen Ann announced that she was launching a website against the next mandate, and I remember it was quite a while ago, and then nothing happened of it, and so I kind of forgot about it, and then I saw that the website was launched just this week, and I'm like, how many months does it take to launch a website? And I don't know who was involved in that. Obviously, Caryn was. I don't know who else, but in my mind, it's unacceptable that it took that long for a website to be launched.
Just from my
And
own
I don't know.
experience, it depends on what method you use. There are simple things like Squarespace and all that, but then there's other things that I end up from like building it from the ground up. So I don't know what the LP uses or what they do, um,
And that
or anyone for that matter.
and that's fair enough. But considering the resources we have, I can't imagine. And I can't imagine. I don't understand why it took so long, and I don't know. And I don't know if either the LNC as a whole is to blame or if there's someone else too. I don't have an answer on that, so I'm not going to hoo ha ha about this. But generally, like even just looking at the LP's Twitter feed, and since Larissa Galgan has taken over, I mean it's improved dramatically. But I mean the last year and a half, it just was not good enough in terms of messaging.
Oh, it was
And
atrocious. Like that.
yeah,
That's
and we've spent too much energy fighting each other over, frankly, asinine shit most of the time. And there's plenty of blame to go around on that. But, I mean, I think the establishment needs to own their role in this. Because if they had taken, and this drama with Caryn Ann totally superseded, like, obviously the investigation report came out this week, and they discussed it during yesterday's meeting. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend yesterday's meeting. I showed up right before they adjourned for the day. But as far as I'm aware, they didn't take any kind of corrective action or any punitive action on what happened, and they can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but that's bullshit. Um, there was very real fraud. There was theft of party resources, and there needs to be some kind of punitive action against JBH for what happened.
Yeah, that was another thing too. Is those emails seem to come out and leave a little bit of a paper trail there with New Hampshire. I mean, honestly, I don't know what their game is at this point because all they're doing is angering more people and making them more invigorated to go into Reno and vote them out.
Well, I think this isn't what I believe, but I think there is some valid concern that the obviously the Necox are now totally outclassed on the LNC with Caryn gone, and who knows who they're going to pick to replace her. Um, and that's going to be a hell of a fight too. But I think some people are very concerned that they're going to try and fuck with Reno and how the convention's executed, whether they fuck with remote participation again, or they schedule a venue that's going to require vaccines or some. Like, people are very concerned about that the LNC will intervene and really engage in some fuckery without Caryn and the votes necessary to block this shit. And I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but I mean, people are very concerned about that.
I mean, if I speak for myself, that wasn't even something I had thought of before, but now that I hear that, that definitely does make me very concerned for the future. That they're basically, in a way, you could make the argument that they're just trying to put up, they're fortifying the whole thing, if you wanted to put it that way.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's very concerning to hear that that is a possibility.
yeah.
I still intend on going to Reno, but that does make me very very concerned just hearing that because I know that would
And again,
probably affect a
I
lot of
don't know
people.
that that's going to happen, but
Yeah,
considering Caryn was one of the firebrands during last year's convention fuckery, I can't help but think that, like, we already know that these entrenched establishment types have no depth that they will stop at to try and stop us.
well, I
Like,
mean
we
it's clear
saw
that
it
they
in
don't have any
PA,
morals.
we've seen it all over the country. We saw it during last year's convention. These people have no qualms about going to really um, unethical, or at the very least gray areas, to get what they want.
It kind of reeks of desperation in a way.
Oh, it does. And
Like
I
it
mean, I like the
they wouldn't be
writing is
resorting to
on the
these
wall.
if they had the numbers, they wouldn't have to do all this.
Exactly. And it's like, apparently, like, people are like kissing ass to try and stay in our favor, or talking out of both sides of their mouth in some cases. So that when the takeover does happen, that some of these people don't get shit canned from the LNC, whether it's staff or appointments that a future chair would make.
Yeah. Um,
So the writing's on the wall. People are getting desperate, and they're going to do everything they can to fuck with it.
yeah, it's a crazy situation. Who do we have here? Is that Stephen Nikhaila?
Hey, what's going on?
There he is. That's one of the other people that I reached out to here. Um, so yeah, we were just kind of discussing what had just happened and just some possible
Hmm.
implications of that and everything. So, um,
Right.
Connor, if you don't mind, do you mind if we have Stephen kind of tell his take on
No,
everything real
not at
quickly?
all. Not at all. Go for it. He's more qualified than I am.
Alrighty.
Cool. Cool. So yeah, guys, I just got back from Kentucky. I just got into Key West maybe about an hour ago. Just kind of getting settled here at home. But pretty much, so we knew for a while this was going to be on the line, and in the beginning, I spoke to Karen Ann. We decided that it would be best to try for the substitute motion to, instead of removing her from the committee, work on mediation. I know.
Oh, you there, Steven?
You guys, you guys hear me now?
Yeah, I could hear you now.
Okay. So yeah, she obviously rubbed some people the wrong way. Um, so it was a pretty tight vote whether or not this thing was going to pass. So I had plans to leave today at the noon time. So I had to leave, get out of there around 10:30. Uh, if I was not there, the idea was that we would have a vote to allow me, hopefully, to be able to speak. If not, then either someone else can move the motions, or worst comes to worst, it's an automatic abstention if I'm not there, which is basically a no vote. Like Josh and Eric Rodstep weren't there; they abstained because they couldn't vote. It was automatically a no vote. So Region Two, we have an alternate, David Sexton. I'm having a meeting with him and the other regional later. And essentially, what happened is I didn't know he was going to be there. So by the time I was in the airport, he told me he wasn't coming. He showed up last minute and he cast that deciding vote. So, you know, um, not much I could have done about it unless I would have abandoned the airport last minute because I was about to board my flight and I thought about going back there. Even the latest flight out of Key West or to Key West would have been before the vote would have taken place. So either I would have been had to find another airline or another airport and drive down 3 hours from Miami or whatever it was. But had I known ahead of time, I would have done that. But I was already at the airport, like I said. So yeah, it's a weird situation, man. I wish it would have gone a little different.
Steven, quick question for you.
Yeah.
I missed yesterday's meeting. I showed up like at the last minute at the end of the meeting. Was any punitive action taken in regards to New Hampshire with the unveiling of the investigatory report?
There was no punitive action that was taken. We decided to pretty much end the committee there. The big unknown is what was in JBH's emails because essentially there was a point where JBH said that the that they went in and they I forget what it was. He claimed something that was false on Facebook early on in the investigation, and it was later found out that he had actually deleted all of his emails prior to the committee taking control of the account. So there's no way at this point none of those emails are archived. We can't go back and retrieve them. The only way we might be able to get those emails is a subpoena to Google, and either pre-litigation or litigation, but it would have to be a subpoena if that's the route we decided to go down. I don't know if there's the political will to make that happen on the committee. I certainly would be in favor of it because I would like to see, it would have to be very specific with an attorney, but I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think there's a political will to pursue this, because it could possibly be grounds of destroying assets and covering up evidence. But I don't know if any of that's necessarily illegal in the sense of the word. I mean, obviously it goes against our organization, but it is what it is. So there's a big unknown of what was in those emails, and we don't know. We don't know. We don't know who the co-conspirators were, besides that were working with Gilletta, and we don't even know if the mystery puppet master exists. If that's a real person or fictitious or a group of people or what. So there's a lot of unknowns. But we did do a few things to ensure that at least in the future emails are archived, and hopefully we approach this in the future a little bit better. One thing the committee did recommend is potentially legal action against JBH. So you can read the report, check it out, see what you think. But the final version of that report is going to be released this coming Saturday.
Well, I mean, the point I was getting at by asking was that the committee has spent more time punishing Caryn than they have the fraud and the theft that went on in New Hampshire.
I mean, that's what I was getting at before. Is it seems like this whole thing was done kind of as a kind of a way of getting rid of someone who made a fuss about New Hampshire and everything that happened.
Well, I think Caryn. I mean, I think there was a lot of emotions during the time where the whole New Hampshire thing was starting to kick off, and those emotions just got turned up to 11. And I think that she took a lot of aggro on that. So I think that she was somebody who, she says some things she shouldn't a lot of the time, and that gets her in trouble. And she recognizes that. And so she became sort of a magnet for a lot of this angst. and I think it was directed at her. But I also think she did rub people the wrong way, and it happened. And a little, too late. Unfortunately, I was hoping she can get another chance and just step back. And she's been pretty introspective on this, and she's been trying to really make an effort to be better. And I would have given her the opportunity. I would like to give her the opportunity, but unfortunately, that just didn't happen.
Well, okay. One more thing for you, Steven.
Sure.
So before you left this morning,
Yeah.
did Whitney Billiou tell Caryn that you will be allowed to make a motion to allow for remote voting later?
I believe that she said that motion would be germane during the topic. So she basically, Karen Ann wanted to make that motion at the beginning of the meeting, and Whitney Billiou said that it would be germane during that particular motion. Now I don't know exactly what happened because I think I was just landing in Atlanta, so I don't know exactly what went down on the LNC when that was brought up. So I don't know if it was shot down or what.
Whitney ruled it out of order.
Huh.
And Caryn Ann appealed, and of course lost the appeal.
Yeah.
So Caryn wasn't even allowed to make the motion, and even if she was allowed, it would have been voted down by the board.
Right. Yeah. If the votes weren't there to let me on, they knew that was the deciding vote. So they didn't want that for a reason. So the votes wouldn't have been there. I don't think the votes probably would. Well, I mean, it was tight. It was very tight. But obviously, if I would have stayed there, things would have gone differently. I just had no way of knowing. I had thought this whole time that David wasn't going to be there, so I assumed that if I left, it would be no problem, and it would be an automatic abstention, which is essentially a no vote. But things turned around last minute without.
Well, that's where this all seems so shady. Is like it seems very coordinated that they aimed for this sort of opportunity, and then as soon as they had it, they clamped on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was definitely a political move. It was definitely a Machiavellian move, which it is what it is, politics, and that's what they did. So
All's fair in love and
I
war,
get
to
it.
be fair.
Exactly. I get it. So people have asked me, do I think that do I call for the removal of David Sexton or anything like that? No, I don't. I don't think so. I think we had a difference of opinion. I wish it was done a different way, and I wish that I was at least made aware of it ahead of time. But I mean, it's things are going to change in Reno. Things are going to change with the regions, and David's a good guy. He did what he did, and I understand it. But we're going to have a Region 2 meeting later this evening to talk about exactly what went down with the state chairs, myself, and a couple others. So I think a lot of people on all sides are trying to figure out what exactly happened and why.
Yeah, I would definitely hope that they would want to at least kind of get to the bottom of that to some degree.
Yeah.
It just seems like a lot of shenanigans going on. And as I was saying before you came on here, all the while, all this crazy shit's going on in the world, and we're seeing the party that we're supposed to be rooting for dealing with all of this.
Yeah, it's definitely some people that were against Karen Ann were saying, well, we need to get rid of her because nothing else can get done on the board unless we get rid of her because she's a distraction, this and that. But there's been so many distractions. I mean, I don't think that she would have stopped me from doing my job. I think that there was definitely a lot of emotions and tension for many months, and that started with what happened in New Hampshire, and that just never settled down, which literally happened the day of the Libertarian Party state convention. So this has been going on since May. So if we really want to look at the culprit of why there seems to be this like downward energy in the LNC right now, and I think it all started with New Hampshire, because right when that happened, man, everything just kind of got turned upside down, and that goes. I mean, at that point, everybody, candidates, donors, members, were all looking at the LNC like, what the fuck is going on? And I had a lot of questions coming in from all sides of folks just trying to figure out what's happening. So
it's very.
I don't think it's fair to blame Karen Ann for everything, because it's definitely not all her responsibility.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
But even before, like the current, there were a lot of people who I talked to at Young Americans for Liberty Revolution, who are almost like looking in at the LP, although they're not members. They kind of know what's going on, even if they don't know the inner workings, like what we're kind of discussing here.
Right.
And a lot of them saw what happened in New Hampshire and were like, okay, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
And that just seemed to be people who didn't really care about the caucuses, don't even know who Caryn Ann Harlos is.
Right. And I honestly believe that what happened and what the report basically said is that so there's a letter, it's a standard letter that's sent out to affiliates, state affiliates that you can take to your Secretary of State and say, I am an official Libertarian Party affiliate. This is a document proving that we are affiliated with the National Party, et cetera, et cetera. So what happened is we have a standard form. I've seen that form before. There's a form that's gone out in the past that the committee's looked at, and that form was very different than the form that JBH had sent Gillette Jarvis. And staff actually begged him not to send it and to reconsider because the particular staff person I'm talking about, he recognized that this probably wasn't going to be a good thing, and it did end up biting JBH in the ass. But what essentially he did is he had a letter that said that this is a new affiliate, that Gilletta Jarvis, as chairwoman, she is the rightful authority in New Hampshire, that there's a split, that you should only recognize this state party. She went to the Secretary of State's office and essentially went ahead and filed as the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire. So he basically blessed the split, made it official. And then once he got found out, he made the motion to disaffiliate New Hampshire. And then he quit and went to South Beach.
Oh, you there?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah. So basically, he sent that letter to Gilletta. She took it to the Secretary of State. They filed it, as they were the correct party. When that blew up, then he made the motion to file or to remove New Hampshire. And then afterwards, he just quit and was on South Beach partying and pretending like everything was okay and threw a Molotov cocktail behind him. So I have no respect for what he did. I think it's outright corruption. It was um, confirmed by an objective committee that this is what happened. And then he deleted his emails and he's also said other false statements that the committee has denied. And it was a very objective committee. And I really didn't know what to expect from that committee, but I think they did a very good job given the information, the tools that they had on hand. So definitely take a look at the report if you haven't seen it.
So those emails did they happen to exist on a server in his basement?
I wish. So, so basically, it was a forward. So if you send an email to chair@lp.org, it would go to, I guess, whatever LNC email inbox he had. And so he just straight up deleted everything. And he said, "Oh, I was archiving it or cleaning it up for the next guy." It's like, no, you don't. That's not how you clean things up for the next guy. So he pretty much dumped his whole mailbox. And by the time we found out, it was already too late. Uh, Unfortunately, I don't think there's any carbon copy anywhere. So we're pretty much SOL unless we subpoena Google.
Yeah, and from what you describe, if there's no political will to get that done, you
Yeah.
kind of hit a dead end, unfortunately. I would love to see where that would
Right.
go, but
Right.
if there's
I
no
would like.
will,
I mean, I would love to get into those emails personally, because I'm sure that tells a whole different story. But we're at a stage now where it's like, we got so much happening in the world, and I hope and pray that we can actually really start doing what we were elected to do and be a part of this board and be effective and work as a team. And if that takes JBH being off of it, great. If Caryn Ann has to go, I don't agree with it. I don't know if this is going to be a turning point on the LNC where we can actually start getting some shit done, if that's the excuse, or are we going to continue to have issues? And I think that'll be something to watch out for. Was she really the problem or not? Um, was she a scapegoat? Was she just somebody that people, looked at her? She rubbed the wrong way at the wrong time. So these are things I'm to consider, but I'm hoping we can at least start to get on the right track and actually do what we were elected to do until we get to Reno.
I mean, I really, really want to hope that is the case. I try to be optimistic in things like this, but it's getting kind of hard to look at some of this stuff. Like when JBH got elected, even though I didn't vote for the guy and I actively supported Josh Smith,
Right.
I try to approach these sorts of things like, okay, I'm going to go in with an open mind. Let's see what this guy's really got. And what we ended up getting was almost Stalin-esque in the way of moving behind the scenes to get things like this to happen.
Yeah. JBH, he was very he he basically did whatever he wanted without notifying the body. With all this, it's an obvious caucus war that happened, and I don't think all the people that voted against Caryn are necessarily anti-Mises caucus. That's my assumption. I think that there was some people that weren't necessarily anti-Mises. There's definitely some folks that are. Don't get me wrong. Believe me. But I'm hoping one of the things that I'm trying to work towards is to at least get folks to talk to and work with the Mises Caucus, because obviously, number one, it is a large body. They do have an impact. They do have a voice. We're part of the party. So bringing the caucus to the table to some of these discussions, I think, is important. So I do think some of it was, unfortunately, I think Caryn did bring onto herself, and I think she realized a little too late that, and I hate to say it, but I think that's the reality, and we have to understand that. But also, some of it probably is caucus driven.
Yeah, no, but my biggest concern with that, though, is after all this, they've almost, and I know not everyone on the Mises Caucus is a fan of Caryn either, just from what I've seen in a few of the comments.
I'm a friend of Caryn,
I mean, I'm a big fan of her. I love her. She's great. Met her twice at 2 conventions. I for one appreciate her just because of everything she did going after the LNC last year. Excuse me. And also exposing kind of what happened in New Hampshire. But you create a situation now where even if you do want to kind of work with the Mises Caucus or work with some of these people, some of them are now going to be looking at you and thinking, okay, how can I trust you?
Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, yeah, I think reputation is everything. So I think it's important how the caucus puts itself forward, and I think there needs to be strategy and tact to everything that's done. That's just a rule of the game. It's just how it's got to be. But as far as the other side, I mean, there can make a pretty good argument that, look, I left with reasonable assumption that either there wasn't going to be anybody to replace me, or I was going to hopefully get on. I mean, obviously that was organized. That creates some trust issues, but it is what it is, right? That's politics. Unfortunately, you have to cross your T's, dot your I's, that kind of thing, and make sure everything is done appropriately to account for every possible outcome and hopefully get the results you wanted. Unfortunately, we didn't get the results you wanted today. I don't know. Is the board going to be functioning again? Is it not? Is it, where do we go moving forward? Aside from the fact that a lot of people are very hurt right now, where do we go moving forward? So I'm hoping that at least, we can get shit done for the next, 6-7 months, whatever we've got until May.
I hope for the best with that. I truly do. You're coming from a Machiavellian point of view, aren't you? Because I could just tell with some of this this different lingo that you're using there. It's yeah, that's basically the rule of the game.
Yeah, I mean, when you're at this level, you have to think a little bit more Machiavellian and understand it, because you either have to be intentional about how you use certain tactics and yourself, and also recognize it when it's coming at you. So it's really important both ways, and it's an important lens, I think, to view politics, especially at the higher levels, at the state and national level, because that's how the game is played. And either we can be real about it and understand it and be intentional about it, or we can pretend it doesn't exist, but that won't serve us if we don't.
Totally agree.
So Machiavellian, definitely.
Hell yeah. I always love a great love of philosophy. So,
Yeah.
Mara, I noticed that you joined kind of a little bit in the middle there. Are you there? Mara is one of my co-hosts on the Swamp Creatures.
Yes, I was pinging you in general chat to ask if I could butt in.
I'm having some issues with the computer here, so
It's fine. So, my first thought is, Steven, let's alternate reality, the substitute mode, or the motion to substitute, and the main motion turn into a censure. Do you think you would have voted? How would you vote in a censure against the secretary? How do you think?
If it was a censure, I would have voted for it. If it was just a censure, I would have definitely voted for it. I think it was probably deserved. I think it would have sent the right message, and it would have been fair on both sides. I would have even supported if it was possible in the bylaws, a certain set date of suspension, and say, look, take a month or two to cool off, 30, 60 days, let the deputy treasurer secretary take care of it, and then come back. And I think that would have been sufficient punishment. Caryn does a really good job. She's been doing this for a long time. She's been on the board for a long time. She's very organized. She's a killer when it comes to, her duties that she has. And I think people really respect that. And people also respect her personality because she will say things that other people won't say. And that's just a part of who she is. And that can be a good thing or a bad thing, depending on the time of day, right? So, I didn't want to see her kicked off the board. In the beginning, I was concerned for her. I was actually legitimately concerned for her, and I was really wondering if it would be the right thing to remove her because of what I was hearing. So I spoke to her, and after I spoke with her, and I started weighing the options and seeing, where she's coming from. We had a productive conversation. I realized, it's not right to remove her. It's, I think that she would have been, there's so in the motion that Laura Epke put forward, there's a lot of things there that I think are hypocritical and a lot of things that don't make perfect sense. For instance, she's not the only one who's broken decorum. I think just about everybody has on the board, and there's a few key individuals that have for years and have been very nasty to her. And there's been a lot of cattiness with some of the ladies on the board over the last couple terms that no one's ever said anything about. And that continues to this day. So now it's a problem, but before it wasn't. So there's just certain things that, for the sake of fairness, I don't think she deserves. And I personally even, I recognize, I said, Caryn, I think I could have done a better job stepping up and defending you. And I saw that kind of behavior towards you. And I also could have done a better job of approaching you and telling you, hey, look, as a friend, you need to cool it, or you need to, adjust your behavior in this way. Maybe you're not seeing it this way, but
So Stephen, if I may interrupt again.
Sure.
So there was never any kind of official action to correct her behavior.
As far as official action by the board, there was a motion, I believe, by Laura Epke for mediation between her or the board and Caryn. And at the time, I don't think Caryn was amenable to it. She later changed her stance. So that was one piece of official action at one point. There was a motion to remove her and also remove her from all the committees, which I think was wrong. I'd understand entertaining a motion to remove her, but removing her plus all of her committee appointments, it seems very personal, or a very harsh punishment at least. So I wouldn't even have entertained that. Yes, that was pretty much it. And then other than that, I think there was talks of a censure, but I don't think the motion was ever made for the censure. It was always motions to remove. When Ken Bowman was chair, that was ruled out of order. And then I think it was maybe one more time that they tried it and it failed. So this was when it was finally considered.
Gotcha. Yeah, we were talking about that earlier before you jumped in here, was that
Mm-hmm.
a censure would have been a really good compromise
Mm-hmm.
because it wouldn't put us in what I was talking about before there, where, now you're going to have people looking like, okay, well, you stabbed me in the back.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think it would have been fair, and I don't know if it would be in the bylaws, but like I said, if we were to do like a 60-day, or even if we were going to take it really harsh, a 90-day suspension, give her time to cool off, bring somebody else in, but I think kicking her off the board was harsh, and I don't think it was the right thing to do. So I don't know where we go from here. I think Matt Crum is our current deputy secretary, so he's going to be stepping up to be. I believe he is going to take over duties until we elect a new secretary, whether it's the deputy secretary or somebody else. So that's going to be an interesting conversation to be had. So we'll see what happens on that front.
All right, well, best wishes to Matt and everything, and the
Yeah.
role that he's about to be thrust into.
Oh, yeah.
As far as like electing someone, when do you think that would be? Because it seems like we're getting awfully close to next year and everything.
Yeah, I think we would open the floor to nominations for the position. So I think we would have, each of us would have the opportunity to nominate whoever we wanted, and then we would just take it to probably ranked choice voting, or however we decide to tackle it. probably through the business list would be my guess. So most likely, because it is an upper level position, just like we did with the chair, we'd make nominations, we'd give time for speeches, and then we'd make our vote based upon, you know, those credentials and qualifications, and elect a new secretary.
Gotcha. Got it.
So
Yeah, no. It's
that's the next step.
it'll be interesting to see where this all goes from here. That's really just what I can say about that. Um, I hope for the best, but it's becoming harder and harder to stay optimistic. I'm not going to lie. This is just from
Yeah,
someone who's not as involved on those higher levels. Just someone who's on the ground, grassroots level.
yeah. I just want to make also just a kind of meta level observation too that I think is important when we talk about the LNC is that a lot of what the LNC does is focused on the board, and the board of directors is definitely important. What we do is an important job. There's definitely power that's held in the board, but most of the things that happen are done in committee or done by staff. So there's still progress. We still have a lot of really great things that I learned coming out of this meeting. We're making really good breakthroughs as far as candidate support. We've got 53% win rate. We're looking to get at least 100 candidates elected. I think this year, more than 100. I think more like half of them are from Pennsylvania. The other half are spread around. We had a profitable 50th anniversary. We are actually doing pretty darn good financially. We just broke 50K a month in recurring donations for the first time. So there's certain things that are really powerful that I think we don't want to overshadow completely, because when we just talk about all the drama and the libertarian TMZ kind of stuff that's going on, which is also crucial, but maybe not the only part of the picture. It's easy to get pretty depressed and down and say, well, if this is all that we're getting done as a national party, I just makes me kind of want to walk away. But there is, really substantial stuff getting done in the background that doesn't get nearly as much attention.
Well, that is a good point. Even
Yeah.
here in Florida, I know we've had our successes, and we have a lot going on. Jim Turney is still elected currently.
Correct.
Hell, even if we're looking at nationally, everything going on. In Denver, they decriminalized psychedelic mushrooms.
Mm-hmm.
So there definitely is a lot to be optimistic about. I guess the problem is it's sort of like that meme where it's like you have the long line of people with the one stand, and then no one's going up to the other one. Like,
Yeah.
everyone seems to get invested in the drama the most.
Yeah, I mean, I think the drama is the easiest thing to understand. It's sexy. It gets around whenever it happens. It's interesting, right? I mean, there is something about it that draws people to drama, and so that's what people are going to learn about first. But if nobody's there to say, "Hey, I got a notebook full of like 7 or 8 pages of notes I took this weekend of just line by line by committee, really awesome things that are getting done."
Most people have a negativity bias when it comes
Mm-hmm.
to other people. So it's like if you have a negative encounter with somebody, you're going to remember that a lot more than any kind of small positive encounter. Like, yeah, this person could hold the door open for you every single day, but if you fart in their presence, you're fucked.
Right. Yeah, especially libertarians too, I think, because we're kind of trained to look at the negative a lot of the time because I mean, look at the world, look at the government, look at, all these different things that are so terrible, the world's falling apart. And so I think libertarians, we kind of train ourselves to look at the negative sometimes to an unhealthy degree. But we also have to take those small victories along the way. And there are some substantial things to be happy about and to be grateful for, to see that the trajectory that we're headed is ultimately good, despite these short-term bumps and things like that. I think that culture is shifting. I think that the party's growing. I think that you look at it as far as the media is starting to get more into the Mises Caucus and the Libertarian Party, and I think eventually our time's going to come. It may not be this year. It might be 5, 10 years from now, but we can see for sure that there is. Maybe it's linear. Maybe it's exponential. I don't know, but I definitely see a path forward, a good trajectory. And I think one thing to take away from all this that's so important is it's so important to elect good leaders in this party, because good leaders are going to get shit happening, and we don't want shady people that are going to stab us in the back later, or we can't trust them, or they only want to work with one side, not the other side. So I think taking that into consideration is definitely something to think about going into Reno next year.
No, I completely agree. It's kind of, to kind of close all this off because we're almost here at the 60-minute mark.
Mhm.
Um, it's sort of like that classic American flag, join or die.
Yeah.
We have to find a way to kind of join together and be that snake, don't tread on me, or else some power is going to cut us up and, die.
Mhm. Right.
Just,
Yeah, we have to be strong, and I think one thing that we really need as a party, and I think one of the reasons why the drama is so powerful at the top too, is because we don't really have something that we can hold on to and say, this is our vision. This is this specific thing I can point to, or I can repeat it. I know in my mind that this is the specific thing we're working towards as a party, as a team, as a united together under this one purpose. We're doing, I mean, obviously there are certain things, but they're not clearly defined. I mean, yes, we want to get libertarians elected, we want to get more funds raised, we want to get more political power, we want to affect legislation, but I think having clear cut goals is so important. And I hope that whoever becomes chair and whoever gets on the board next time, we can come together and create a clear vision deck to unite all the sides of the party. And I would like to see all the caucuses involved in this. I want to see the Mises caucus and the Rads and the Prags and everybody to see what we're aligned on and start working that direction, because there's going to be some differences, but in priority probably, and maybe in substance. But I think that ultimately a lot of what we want is the same thing. And if we don't have that and we can't sit down and come together and do that, then we're going to continue to have these problems. And I think the issue we have with JBH, one of the biggest issues as a leader, is that he was unwilling to sit down with one side, and he actually started to get um, to attach vitriol to the Mises Caucus, and that ended up in New Hampshire.
I completely agree with that. As funny as it might sound, we all have to come together in the middle and become libertarian centrists.
Yeah, which is still pretty radical in my opinion.
Yeah, there we go, radical centrist.
Amen.
Um, so yeah, do you guys any closing comments or anything just for the whole thing? Any final things just to say? Connor, you have anything to say or?
I'm really hopeful that the board at least has some kind of resolution at this point. Let's put the nasty bullshit behind us. And I mean, regardless of how anyone feels about this outcome today, is we got to get past it. There's still work to do. There's At this point, there's no excuse to continue the drama. Let's get shit done. And with that being said, I think it's a major letdown that there was nothing punitive taken in regards to New Hampshire. But I mean, spilled milk at this point.
Here.
That's all I gotta say.
Mara, do you have any closing comments and everything? I know you joined kind of late, but just anything you want to say on all this?
I hope we can finally just come to an end with all the BS. Let's put our time into something more worthy than, ooh, this person did this. We're going to suspend you. So,
All right. Steven, any final things here?
Yeah, I would say look at the positives. Look at the good things being done in the background. Try not to hope, and understand that yeah, this sucks. I personally wish I could have been there to have made a difference if I would have known. Um, but it is what it is. So we'll just have to work for the future. Meet up in Reno, but in the meantime, let's not make Reno the main focus for the next 8 months. Let's make it, doing what we can to put work into this party and actually get shit happening in the real world. And then when you show up to Reno in 2021 or 2022, you can say, look at what we did. We're the ones that need to be in charge, and we're qualified, and this is why. So put the work in now, and we'll focus on elections next year.
Right on. So, anyone still tuning in? Thanks for joining us and everything. Connor, do you have something you just wanted to say to that, or? Oh, my bad. I saw that. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. Hope this could have shined a little bit of a light on everything that's happened, because it's been a very eventful day on the Book of Faces and Twitter. Um, so thank you, everyone. Thank you, Steven. Hope you guys enjoyed this edition. I promise next time I will finally figure out how to use Streamlabs, and I won't look like a freaking boomer. All right. But anyways, thank you again, guys. It's always good having you on.